All right, so this is Chapter 1, Lesson 5, Negative Exponents. Okay, so we're going to talk about basically negative exponents. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the power of 0 exponent. So I'm going to look at that first. Okay, so basically what it says with powers that are 0, so anything raised to the 0 power equals 1. M to the 0 equals 1. 3k to the 0 is 3 times k to the 0. K to the 0 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Okay, so you have to be very, very careful about that. 5 to the 0, b squared. This becomes 1. B squared stays the same. 1 times b squared is b squared. 4a squared b to the 0 is 4 times a squared times b to the 0. This becomes 1. I'm left with 4a squared. Okay, so anything raised to the 0 power is 1. The other thing is negative exponents. So basically when you have a negative exponents, all that means is you take whatever that value is and you move it, you flip it. You put it where the reciprocal goes, okay? So if it's a to the negative m, it becomes 1 over a to the m. So a negative exponent means we have to rewrite our power term as a 1 over fraction, okay? I want to write negative exponents as positive factors. Okay, so note a can't be 0 because 1 over 0 is not possible. Okay, so this value, a, the base, cannot be 0. So let's look at some examples. All right, so the first thing I want to look at is 6 to the negative third. Okay, I want to rewrite that as a positive exponent. That's the goal. Okay, so if I rewrite this, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 6 to the negative third. I'm going to move it down below to the denominator. So I have 1 over 6 to the third. Okay, if I want to rewrite something with a negative exponent, so I have 1 over 5 squared. So 1 over 5 squared is the same thing as saying 5 to the negative second power. So I've taken this, which was in the denominator, and I move it up so it's in the numerator. So this is like saying 5 to the negative second power over 1. Okay. Looking at my next one, it says 5 cubed times 5 to the negative fifth. So I want to write this so it has no negative exponents. Okay. 5 to the third is fine. It's great. It can stay up there. Okay. But remember from last lesson when we can just subtract these, right? Because I'm multiplying them. So 3 minus 5, right? I'm sorry, I'm adding them, right? So 3 minus 5. So 3 plus negative 5 is negative 2, okay? And then this goes down into the denominator, so I have 1 over 5 squared. Well, 5 squared is 25, so I have 1 over 25, okay? So basically I took these, I used something I learned previously, that I can add my powers, right? 3 plus negative 5 gives me the negative 2. That moves down to the denominator and becomes 1 over 25. All right, so now I've got a couple of definitions to look at. So it says the blank, 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 and the blank, blank, blank rules can be used to multiply and divide powers with negative exponents. So the first one I have is power of powers. So power of powers. And the quotient of powers rules can be used to multiply and divide powers with negative exponents. So basically I can use all these that I just learned, right? So with this example, I used the power of powers, I used quotient of powers, I've used all of these things. So basically I've used them in order to divide with negative exponents. All right, so there are 6 try problems. Go ahead, pause the video, Try the try it problems out. When you're done, we'll come back, we'll look at them together. All right, so now that you've looked at the try it problems, let's try them out together. So the first one, write each expression using a positive exponent. So A says 7 to the negative 2 power, okay? So remember, with negative exponents, so this is A. So I have 7 to the negative 2. All this is telling me is to move it down. So this becomes 1 over 7 squared. Okay, it wants you to leave it like that. Don't evaluate it. Just leave it. Rewrite it with positive exponents. Okay. So that will give me, running out of table space, sorry about that. So this is 1 over 7 squared. Okay. If it told me to evaluate, then I could do 7 squared, which is 49. All right. So then I have B, m to the negative 4th. So all this is saying is 1 over m to the 4th power. Okay, pretty simple, right? All right, so then I'm going to look at C. C and D ask me to write each fraction as an expression using a negative exponent other than negative 1. Okay, so I'm going to look at 1/4. I'm going to come over here. Okay, 1/4, right? 1/4 4 is the same thing as saying 2 times 2, which is the same thing as 2 squared, right? I want to write this as a negative exponent though, okay? So right now I have 1 over 2 squared, which I can rewrite. I can take this and move it up, so I get 2 to the negative 2nd power. So C is 2 to the negative 2nd power, okay? So I didn't just want to move the 4 up because it said exponent other than negative 1. All right, letter D says 1 over 8 cubed. Well, that one's pretty simple. All I need to do is take the cubed, because that's already something other than negative 1. So this can become, all this has to do is move up. So this becomes 8 to the negative 3rd power. All right, letters E and F ask me to simplify each expression, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take what I know about powers of products and powers of quotients, okay? Quotient of powers and the power of powers rule and the product of powers rule, and simplify them. So let's look at E is 3 to the negative 8 times 3 squared. Okay, so E is 3 times negative 8 times 3 squared. This is the same thing as saying negative 8 plus 2, right? Because they have the same base. So negative 8 plus 2 gives me a negative 6. So this is really 3 to the negative 6 power, which I can rewrite because I don't want any negative exponents. So this is 1, 3 to 6. When I multiply this out, 3 to the 6 is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which is 1 over 729. Okay? So remember, 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. 27 times 3 is 54, up until we get to 729. Okay? So I can come back over here, put in my answer for E, which is 1 over 729. Remember, they asked me to simplify each expression, so I want to simplify it as much as possible. All right, letter F is b to the negative 4th over b to the negative 7th. So here I can use the quotient rule, right? b to the negative 4th, b to the negative 7th. When I have these, I basically am subtracting. So I'm going to take negative 4 minus a negative 7. Make sure you put that negative 7 in parentheses. I have two negatives right here, negative, negative. They make a positive, right? So now I have negative 4 plus 7, which gives me 3, which is the same thing as saying b to the third power. My exponent is positive, so I don't have to do anything else to it. I have nothing to evaluate because I have no whole numbers. So for f, my final answer is going to be b cubed. And that is the end of lesson 5.